Enterprise Digital Podcast with Ian and Barclay Ray, navigating the ever-expanding service management maze.
Well, hello once more. As you can see, I am talking without actually moving my mouth, and that's because my video is a bit funny. My camera or my broadband or whatever it is not as it should be, and I'm deeply sorry about that. Welcome to the Enterprise Digital Podcast. I am a strangely alien version of Barclay Ray, but there's a very normal version of Ian Aitchison here. Ian, how are you doing?
Hello. Oh, it's very hot, but other than that, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's probably the hottest day ever in the UK or maybe in the world. I don't know. I'm going to put my camera off now because it's just annoying.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah, that will probably help. Yeah, I look as if I'm asleep. So here we are again, and we've recently been doing lots of stuff with lots of interviews and lots of stuff that we show, and it's still coming out, and that will still come out for years probably. Who knows? Ian, one thing that we always do, it's a tradition on the podcast by this time, we generally introduce some trivia, or maybe I should correct that. You generally introduce some trivia at this point. Do you have some of that with you today?
Of course I do. Yes, of course I do. We do have a guest coming on shortly, but before we reach our guest, I do have our usual trivia. I'm wondering if there's a connection between the trivia and the guest. There might be, but only slightly. So yes, here's today's interesting trivia for you, Barclay. When you were young, and I know we're going back into that, when you were young, did you play Doom?
Doom,
the game Doom. Did you play Doom?
I don't think so. Not knowingly. I mean, wow. I mean things that led to Doom, and I had some Doom-laden experiences. But playing a game called Doom, was that a board game or a?
Oh no! How can you not know? So Doom was just the most amazing, the first real 3D shoot 'em up style amazing game, and I was a very small little tadpole at the time, but I remember playing Doom on my Windows 3.1 computer many years back. Right. It was wonderful. Anyway, so here's your trivia news. Recently, a researcher at MIT, a biotechnology student called Lauren Ramlin, released a paper documenting how she has successfully managed to run this game Doom, which is a first-person shoot-'em-up maze game, amazing game. She has managed to run Doom on a display made from E. coli cells, which are found in the stomach. Now, you may wonder.
It's a really hot day, and there's things that might turn one's stomach. This is getting silly now. I mean,
that's great.
We're way past trivia. We're on to just utter nonsense.
No. This one's good. So apparently, for this project to work, E. coli cells were set up to function as pixels. So biological cells, not neurons, E. coli, was set to run as pixels that could be either on or off, able to collect light to form images, much like a computer screen does. So Ramlin grew cells in a 1-bit well plate, whatever that is, and then connected that to a controller capable of translating binary code into the addition or omission of a repressor controlling the fluorescence of the cells. Wow, you say, but Ian, how quick was that screen? That's what you're going to be asking me. How quick? Let me tell you.
No, I'm going to be saying, why?
You say why after I tell you how long it takes to refresh. This is brilliant. This is why I love this. It just makes me laugh. It takes roughly 70 minutes to fully illuminate, and then another 8 hours and 20 minutes to dim back to its original state for a single frame of this first-person shooter game, Doom, which what some of us know and love. Consequently, they estimate it would take 599 years to play Doom on E. coli cells. How about that for trivia? Beat that one.
Well, yeah, and somebody I'm sure out there is going, wow, I'm going to do that. I will. They won't be on my social list of, dinner party candidates if they're going to talk about that kind of stuff. But yes, I'm sure there's lots of things you can do with stomachs. I mean, in Scotland, as you know, we make food from stomachs. That's what haggis is.
You do the haggis. That's true. Yeah, that's true. There's a whole load of other trivia there for those not close to Scotland. Stomach turning, indeed. But there we are. So that's this week's trivia. You're still off camera for those that have joined halfway through this recording. Barclay's struggling with technology.
Yeah, I feel sorry for them about that. I think the challenge really post the World Cup and post the Tartan Army in America was that they re-certified haggis as being fit for eating after it had been banned for many years. So maybe somebody had been playing Doom and thought, I can't bear this any longer. I'm hungry. So
stomach this. Indeed.
Yeah,
right. Enough trivia. Should we move on to more important matters?
Yeah. Let's introduce our guest today. Today we have Brian Parks. Are you going to bring him in, Ian? Or?
Yeah, Brian is with us. Brian from Synapse Software. Hello, Brian.
Yep, I'm from Synapse Software. Yes.
Hey, Brian. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us and for sitting through that few minutes of purgatory.
That was I never would have expected that I would have learned about using E. coli as a computer screen. In 599 years, that's I can't sit through a game for more than 20 minutes, so I can't imagine trying to sit through it for anywhere close to 599 years. Aside from the whole, impracticality of it.
I played Doom so much as a child. I think I probably did near enough 599 years of time playing. I loved that game. Wow, it's good.
Be an expert or whatever. Thanks for joining us, Brian. It'd be good if you, for those out there who haven't come across you before, just maybe give us a quick intro on your what you do and your background. We don't need your backstory and your whole life story and so on, but just a little bit about what you've been doing, what sort of things are of interest to you, and how you got to the position that you're in today. I know that you write articles and do a whole pile of stuff in the industry, so it'll be interesting just to hear how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I've been a software engineer for over 20 years at this point, and I do still consider myself a software engineer, even though I go back and forth on, whether or not that's actually accurate anymore. Because I have had the company Synapse Software. I started the company almost 3 years ago, and that's been kind of my main focus for a good portion of that time. Started as a side project, but it's been a full-time project for quite a while now. So I don't do much software engineering anymore, and both because of the influence that AI has had on what software engineering is or maybe isn't anymore, and also because most of my time is spent running the company, so I don't actually have time to jump into the code nearly as much as anymore as I did when I first started it. But a couple of highlights from prior to that, when I definitely was a software engineer. From 2017 to 2020, I worked at Cherwell Software, which I know from talking to you all before we started recording. That's a name that you're familiar with. So I was there for 3 years, worked on their ITSM platform. And that was kind of the inspiration for starting this company, was after they got acquired by Ivanti, and Ivanti announced that the platform was being shut down. I still wanted to work with all of the companies who were still using Cherwell, and kind of help them transition off, especially because their Cherwell systems were typically very customized. So an ITSM migration from Cherwell to somewhere else was not going to be just a, lift the data, move it over. So I started this company to do archival. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years, gotten really into data. I have always really enjoyed the database aspect of software engineering. And as I suspect we'll talk about a little bit later, data is super critical in being ready for AI. And without good data, you don't have good AI. So that's been a thing that we've been talking about within the company. And while our product doesn't specifically target that right now, that's something that we know is going to come up, and we want to be ready for as well. And I think that's, products aside, right? That's a big conversation that organizations, have to be thinking about because a huge part of IT is data.
Yeah, we have that conversation a lot. Data and people, I suppose, as the kind of key things in terms of making stuff work. Okay, thank you for that. We will be talking a little bit about AI and readiness and what the impact of that is. So thank you for the intro, and thank you for joining us. We'll just pause to contemplate that, and also the astonishing revelations around the E. coli that we've already heard. And we'll stop and have a tea biscuit and a glass of fig juice just to calm us all down. Okay, so I'm assuming you can still hear me. I mean, you're all quite blessed this week because you're not seeing me.
Great episode. It's the best.
Let's kick off with what you said a minute ago, Brian, which is maybe expand on that in terms of that you consider yourself a software engineer, and you have been a software engineer, but you don't do very much of that now. I mean, a lot of people would say that as they move up in their jobs, you started out as this, and then when you get to manage, or you get to run, or you get to lead, you're doing different stuff. But specifically, I'm guessing from what you said that you were talking about more about the fact that you don't need to do the software engineering, or you don't have so much direct involvement with it because of AI. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So the company is almost 3 years old now, and over those 3 years, obviously AI has changed drastically. When I first started the company, ChatGPT had come out, and people were using it, but the hype cycle was very strong in the, it will solve all of our problems, and there's nothing that AI can't do, and groundedness in reality was not a thing. Right. It didn't matter if it was grounded in reality. People were talking about how awesome AI was and how it could do, everything and then some. Right. So I wasn't really interested in using AI in software engineering at that time. So I definitely still considered myself a software engineer. I wrote code. I understood problems. I turned them into, software, and saw users have their problem solved and be delighted by it. Right. And that was kind of my mental model of what software engineering was. Over the last 3 years, certainly AI has come a long way. Our ability to use AI and the tools that have been built around it, especially in the software engineering realm, have advanced dramatically. And so that pattern of software engineering is maybe kind of an archaic paradigm. And now, obviously the company has grown. I have a team of software engineers. I still consider them software engineers because they are still writing the software. But what they do is very different from the pattern that I was familiar with doing because they leverage AI. They might not be handwriting the code anymore. Sometimes they still do, depending on the scenario. But there's a lot more leverage of AI that's generating the code based on inputs and requirements. And obviously the big innovation of ChatGPT was this conversational aspect. the way we interact with AI. So there's a lot more of a conversation with this, model, AI model, to generate the code. So in that sense, the idea of software engineering has changed significantly. But then of course there's the company has grown, so I'm not as involved in the individual coding.
You're still building stuff, though. I mean, it's still engineering, or it's still creating.
Oh, absolutely.
So whether it's done with somebody who's skilled at a particular level of coding or scripting or whatever, you still have to solve issues and
still need to know what problem to solve. But I guess you're now more directing the agents to actually produce the code for you, so that you can validate the code is what it needs to be. So that's that writing of code now. There's a lot of talk about this, isn't there, at the moment? I heard, now I'm quoting really badly here, but I heard an interview with one of the board or exec level in Y Combinator, who are one of the big sort of founder platforms, the angel startup type platforms. And they were saying, he was saying something like 90% of all the new startups that have come to them for funding in the last year, they're all software startups, but 90% of them are not writing that code themselves. They're leveraging AI to write that code. And so consequently, they're moving much faster and doing more amazing things, but they know what they want to do, but they rely on agents to do it. Is that what you see, Brian, as well? Is that kind of has that ship already sailed? Are we already there, do you think?
Well, so I think there are a couple different reasons for that. One is Y Combinator, just because of the nature of who they are, they're always going to be on the front edge of the hype cycle.
Leading edge, yeah.
There's no guarantee that a company working with Y Combinator is going to be a successful company, because they are an accelerator. Y Combinator has the clout and the connections that if you get into Y Combinator, there's definitely a higher probability that you're going to be successful. I mean, look at the companies that we're familiar with using on a daily basis. A shocking number of them went through Y Combinator, early on in their evolution. Y Combinator has also been very excited about AI over the last several years, so it kind of attracts that level of company. There's also the age of the company. At that early stage, you're writing a lot of what I would call boilerplate code. You just need a platform to build to start with, right? You need a database. You need to store data somewhere. You need API endpoints. You need a UI. It doesn't need to be the perfect UI. So those sorts of things are things that AI code generation tools are really good at. There's nothing special about any of that code. It's just the same code that's been written, dozens of other times. Every application needs a database. Every application needs an API of some sort. Every application needs a UI. AI can generate that stuff, just as easily and significantly faster than a human can. So that's a perfect use case for AI. But I'm sure what we'll find, and maybe it won't be while they're working with Y Combinator, but it'll be probably by the time they graduate from Y Combinator, is a human has to do some custom aspect of the code. They might be able to get away with prompting it through several iterations of prompts, because obviously each company has to do something unique with that code. So I think there are a few different reasons why we're seeing, obviously, the influx of software related companies going to Y Combinator, just because that is the hot topic. I'm hopeful that eventually there will be more of a balance, as things like health and other things, right, that aren't specifically software related. At the same time, I don't think software is going anywhere, right? It's been at least a decade. I forget who it was who said it, but it was like every company is an IT company, right? Every company is a software company, just because IT is everywhere, software is everywhere. Even the most. So I live in a farming community, and I've talked to farmers who have robot milkers, right? They're not technical. If I talk to them about software engineering, they would be absolutely confused, and it's not really something they want to talk about, but they're still using technology. I'm sure there's a computer in this robotic milker that they use. Right.
So, hey, Brian, is taking that example, every company's a technology company, IT. Is every company now becoming an AI company?
I don't know that we can confidently say one way or the other. I think it's certainly very, very hard to avoid using AI, right? Even if you do a Google search, you're going to get an AI result at the top.
Yeah.
And maybe 6 months ago, probably even more recently than that, maybe 3 months ago, I could say that, yeah, you could do a Google search and completely ignore the AI summary at the top because they were just awful. But they've come a long way in that time. And I actually use the AI summary way more than I ever thought I would. If I'm not looking for a specific web page with my Google search,
Yeah.
the AI summary is usually good enough. It's almost like it hurts me to say it, but it's like a better Wikipedia, right? Because Wikipedia doesn't always necessarily have the article that I'm looking for. If I'm looking for a person or a song or an artist or something like that, yeah, Wikipedia probably has an article. But if I'm looking for a basic overview on some topic, Wikipedia might not have that article specific to that topic. But if I type it into Google, Google will go find some web pages and kind of give me a real-time on-demand article describing that, and thankfully with references, so I can go look at, if I want to see what a specific person has said on that topic, or there's a specific website that is authoritative on that topic. Yeah, let's go read deeper. So I think, yeah, AI is becoming way more useful. AI is becoming way more helpful and appropriate to a lot of situations. So back to the original question.
Yeah, it's used in many organizations, right? So it's becoming a standard tool. As we know, we talk about this a lot, right? We interact with AI in many, many ways now. Barclay and I, we often talk about challenges, don't we? About how sometimes AI is not successful. And it can bring challenges to an organization trying to get the benefit of AI. And there've been some failures. In fact, there was one I was reading just this morning, which I don't have in front of me, so I'll look it up while we're talking, but it was an amazing news about rolling back on AI. And I know, Brian, you've got a few views on what makes AI initiatives successful. And I think that might sort of connect with your business direction a little bit. Can you kind of talk to what you see as, if an organization is about to invest time and effort in adopting new AI power to accelerate its business, what does it need to watch out for?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of companies, both, me personally, just scanning the internet and seeing what people are doing successfully and unsuccessfully, and through what we do as a company working with archiving companies' historical data, we see people. Well, first of all, AI is still very new, right? Even though it's been around AI as a concept has been around for decades, but generative AI, which is what most of us are talking about when we talk about AI these days, has been around and well used for 3 or 4 years. So it's been around for a while, but it's still very new, and people still don't necessarily understand how they would use it. There are a lot of people who know it's out there, they know it's powerful, but they don't know how it would relate to their particular workflow, life, day-to-day, workflows, that sort of thing. And the instruction from a lot of places has been just use it, which is okay. Like what does that actually do? And how do I evaluate if I just use it? Like, did it work? Did it not work? How do I do that? So there have been a lot of companies that have just gone headfirst into AI and tried to use it for everything, and they've very quickly realized that is not the way to go about doing things. There is a little bit more of a strategic approach that they need to take, determine some of the situations where AI maybe is more appropriate, maybe isn't more appropriate. But the key really is AI is trained on something. The foundation models are trained on quite a bit, a large amount of the internet. So if you're asking for general understanding, general questions, maybe the foundation model is appropriate. However, most larger organizations have data that is specific to them, right? In the ITSM world, you might have things like a knowledge base. Well, that's custom to you, right?
Yeah.
How do you connect the AI models and the AI experience to your knowledge base and have it be useful? Oh, and by the way, that only works well if you have a knowledge base and the knowledge base is good, right? If you don't have good data, the AI can't just invent data out of thin air. I think maybe there's a terminology aspect of this that we kind of failed in early on. We called it generative AI. It's not really generative AI. It's more like synthesizing AI, right? Take pieces that already exist and turn them into a new whole. It's not inventing things out of thin air, right? It can't create knowledge articles that don't exist if you don't provide it the information to invent those knowledge articles.
Something you said there earlier about the farm. I mean, if you is every company an IT company? Is every company an AI company? Would you say the same about electricity, or would you say every farm needs to use electricity or not? Well, yes, they probably do. Every company needs to use electricity or not? Yes, they do. But that's not the point of what they are there to do. So you've got to start with the why we're doing this, what do we want to get from it, and so on. And it's, in that sense, to me, it's no different from any other technology. It's maybe got more power, it's maybe got more scope, and so on. But you still have to be clear as what you want to get out from it. One thing that does concern me is the way that it's been, taken up. And I'm just looking at your LinkedIn, and that you've got a really good quote there on a post today where you're saying farms are for food, not data centers. And how much resources, planetary resources, are we wasting where people create these video memes and cartoons and
at the expense of farmland and food and
exactly, we can kind of laugh about it, but it is actually really important. We've got a huge potential time bomb of the environment and the growth of people, and how are we all going to feed ourselves, and yet we're all faffing around creating little pictures of versions of ourselves in toy casings and it's fun. I don't want to. Well, I am sounding like the miserable old Scotsman. I know that, but it's how much resource does that use up, and how much of our power and our water and that should be used elsewhere. And that doesn't seem to be controlled particularly. I mean, I think that is definitely an area where we should have more to sort of rein people in on that, because you can go in there and set things off. I know somebody who set off a query in ChatGPT a couple of years ago that ran for about 2 weeks. It was a big question about the planet and so on, but actually, how much resource did that actually use? So that's the sort of thing that really concerns me in it, and I think we've got to get that practical, sensible handle on why are we doing this, and what are we going to use it, what we're going to use it for.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely spot on, and that's something that's been rattling around in my brain for at least the last several months, if not longer. I think for a long time, society as a whole has been more and more disconnected from, we'll just pick on food for a second, but like our food supply, right? We don't know where our food comes from. And in an effort to become more and more efficient at producing food, we've just further disconnected the consumer from the producer, to the point where, farmers are really struggling to make money, make a living. Forget about making a profit, just like being able to live on the money they're bringing in on the food that they're selling, because there are so many steps between producing it and distributing it and storing it and selling it and then preparing it, and right. And the answer to all of this has been policy or subsidies. Let's just give farmers a bunch of money, government money, so that the population doesn't have to think about it, right? That's not the greatest way to go about it. And AI and data centers in general, but especially this push toward AI data centers, has just made it so much worse. It feels like every day I come across a new article of a farmer refusing to sell to a tech company to build an AI data center, or another town meeting where people are getting arrested or at least really, really upset and absolutely railing against, why are we selling out to AI data centers? Because this is, I feel like it couldn't be more disconnected between the two aspects, and we're solving a problem that doesn't even exist. Right? We don't need more AI data centers. We have plenty of data centers. Maybe we need a couple more to scale the capacity, because we are companies are continuing to grow. Companies continue to invest in the cloud, right? We will need some more capacity, but we don't need hundreds more data centers in all areas of, the articles that I see are mostly the US, but worldwide, right? We don't need to take over farmland to build AI data centers to do what? To just sit there idle and be really loud and potentially destroy ecosystems. What are we actually solving by building these data centers? Oh, and also, we're usually using farmland to build the data centers and taking away from the food supply even more and more. And it's just, we're not paying attention to the connectedness and how one side of the equation is affecting the other side of the equation. And it's, you have to be careful. If you scroll, LinkedIn, Instagram, anywhere you go, you have to be careful how far down the rabbit hole you go, because it can get really, really depressing really quickly.
Yeah. And two things might, sorry, Barclay, I'll jump in there. Two things I might comment on that one. One is, we're talking about the expense of delivering the outcome, not so much the fact that the outcome is mostly quite useful. And yeah, I know there's the memes, so I know there's the comedy clips and so on, but the serious usage of the outcome of AI technology is generally pretty good. There's a lot of really good medical uses. There's a lot of really good science uses. They're inventing things that have never been invented before. So the outcome is good, but the mechanism to get to the outcome is expensive and painful and has a negative impact. So what we're describing is, wouldn't it be great if the method was different, but we could still achieve the sort of benefits? The other thing I was going to throw in, I found the interesting post I was going to mention that I saw this week. Ford, I'm hoping, by the way, Brian, Ford aren't one of your customers. Ford Motor Company rehired hundreds of senior engineers. Are they one of your customers, Brian?
They are not.
Okay, good. I can carry on. They've rehired hundreds of senior engineers, software engineers, after replacing them with AI, because it backfired and cost the company billions of dollars, because they've had to recall loads of vehicles. They had released their most knowledgeable engineers and let them go, replace them with AI, and it led to major problems with the quality of their products. So we do sometimes see that backlash. We do see where it's where people are irreplaceable in this. And I think, there's a middle ground, isn't there? There has to be something where the two can coexist and the production is cheaper than it is currently. There we are. I covered 3 points in one go.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, so there's a responsibility aspect, right? How do you use AI responsibly? And that doesn't mean, don't use AI ever, right? Even without generative AI, we've been using AI for many, many years. Traditional classification, traditional regression.
I couldn't go back from where I am now in terms of my use of
Right.
AI
And at
various ways today. It's just
And at the very least, like even if you just use the AI summary at the top of Google, like it makes a better Google, right? That's definitely helpful. That's a situation where it works really, really well, and the value probably is worth the cost. Now we don't. Part of the problem is that we don't actually know what the cost is, right? That's still very opaque, and it's not just the cost of generating that response, but what was the cost going into training the model, right? That's something that
Yeah.
you know, even if you look at actually what one of my friends, Matt Barron, posted. He has got a newsletter where today's episode, whatever you call a newsletter installation,
Yeah.
specifically he included a link to a site where he's trying to track his data AI usage impact, right?
Okay.
And I think it only tracks the immediate usage, right? So a prompt, how much impact to the world, to the environment does that particular prompt have? But I don't think we have a good way of measuring the impact of training the models. And are there models that were responsibly trained or sustainably trained, right? The whole green movement hasn't really made it to AI yet. I think it's still a little bit too new. But that's something that I think we need to think about. How can we use AI responsibly, and how can we better inform ourselves about rather than just trying AI for something and seeing if it works? Actually, how can we be strategic about, before we even try to use AI for it, is this something that AI is really well suited for, where it's more likely to be successful, more likely to be a responsible use of AI, a sustainable use of AI, maybe use fewer tokens or however it's measured, before just, trying it and oops, that lit another forest on fire. That maybe don't do that again.
Just taking it. I mean, that's a really good point, actually, and we know Baron, and we
we do
love him over many years. Just going back to the first point, just to round off this conversation, which is actually going down a really interesting track, and certainly from my perspective, because I do take a lot of these things very seriously. But you talked about being a software engineer, but not doing software engineering anymore. And I think there's two ways of looking at that. You could say that, is AI actually making you more distant from the work that you're actually doing, in the way that we talked about farming and so on? So are we actually and food production, are we getting too far away from the actual content or reality of what we're doing? Or does AI potentially allow us to actually get closer to it, because we're focusing on the important bits of it, not the technical? What do you think?
You couldn't have phrased that question better. I think that's absolutely spot on. There's definitely the risk that using AI to do software engineering makes us more and more disconnected, right? I look at the whole, the term vibe coding just makes me sick, right? The idea that you just type, click go, and basically like close your eyes, close your ears, like it's just doing a thing, and I trust it implicitly. That's
Ian loves vibe coding. But
I knew you would. Guilty. Yeah.
That is not software engineering.
I'm not a software engineer.
It's there's no guarantee that what comes out the other end is going to be anything that anyone should run anywhere. Like that. No, that's just not software engineering. However, like I said before, AI is great at generating a bunch of the boilerplate, right? The stuff that realistically software engineers don't want to spend time writing. Use an AI for that. Prior to AI, we would have used code generators and automations for that. Like, yes, absolutely. That is a perfect use case for that. However, to your point of, does it bring us closer to the things that are important? I think that's absolutely a thing that I've seen when I do get a chance to write code. I spend a lot more time on defining the requirements, right? Because I have to build a prompt, and the better the prompt is, the better the output is going to be. I also spend a lot more time on testing my code, I will be the first to admit I was an absolutely horrible software engineer, and I would build code and then send it to someone else and hope it worked. Don't do that. Don't do that. Even if you're doing old school software engineering, don't do that. That's bad. I knew it was bad, and still I did it more often than I should have. But with AI, like, who else is going to test it? Certainly not the AI. I mean, maybe it is, but what's the guarantee that it's not going to test that it did the thing that it intended to do? And hey, look, 1 + 1 does in fact equal 2. Well, great. That's math. It's not because of any code that the AI wrote. So it's on me to verify that the code that was generated in response to hopefully a good prompt that I put together does what I intended it to do, and discover, if my description was ambiguous in any way. So it's definitely allowed me to focus more on the aspects of software engineering that I probably overlooked because I was spending way more time writing the code, which are all things that I should have been doing. They were all good things to be doing anyway. The strategic software architecture, the defining the requirements, the testing, the validation, the figuring out how things should be deployed, right? Everything around the actual writing of the code. So in some ways, it has redefined software engineering, and in some ways, it can make you more and more disconnected from the code in a absolutely horrific way. In some ways, it absolutely frees up your time to do the things that are arguably the more important things, right? Who cares if you wrote code if it doesn't actually solve the user's problem?
Yeah, that's really some really good and open and honest things that you've said, Brian. Really help. So I think what we're saying, or what you're saying, is that used responsibly and sustainably and properly, AI can actually help you to be a better, in brackets, software engineer or golf course designer or farmer or whatever. But it's not that on its own that will deliver that. You need that with the human and the intelligence in there.
Absolutely. You're not outsourcing your brain to a computer. You still have to provide that control. You have to provide that thought, provide that creativity and oversight, right? It is just a tool, right? It is not a replacement.
Okay, I think that's come across very clearly, and some really great points in there, I think, as well, about some of the other challenges here with the green agenda and what's sustainable, not just from the environment point of view, but also from a business point of view and from an ethical point of view, all those kind of things. Brian, thank you very much for that contribution.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on the show.
And we didn't mention E. coli once. So just rounding that off, thank you very much to Brian. How do people get hold of you, Brian?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend probably most of my social media time. You can also find me through my company. We do have a YouTube channel where we post obviously about our product as well. But I have talked about our approach to AI, both internally within the company and when we've thought about adding it to the product or not adding it to the product, and AI sustainability and responsibility come into play there as well. And you can also find me around various ITSM conferences and groups as well. But LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll speak to you again. We'll run into you again, I'm sure, in the future. Ian, thank you as ever, and we'll see you again next time on the. Or you won't see me, but we'll see.
Hopefully, you will.
We'll see everybody else and their own E. coli on the next time on the Enterprise Digital Podcast. Thank you.